Welcome to Intimacy Evolution, the podcast that helps you enjoy deeper connection and more intimacy in your relationships. I'm Brianna Carey, relationship and intimacy coach, and together with my husband Mark, a licensed professional counselor, we're here to help couples create the relationships they crave. Relationships evolve over time, and that's okay. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Intimacy Evolution, and today we have Leola Watkins with us. Welcome, Leola.
Hello, welcome listeners. Thank you so much for having me, Brianna. It is great to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited for this conversation today, and I am really excited for our listeners to learn about the work that you do. So please introduce introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Leola, and I am a pleasure priestess and Tantra teacher. I am the best-selling author of Sacred Sex Ed and founder of Tantra Love Retreat, the Naked Soul Society, and I do a bunch of really fun things that involve empowering people to reclaim their relationship to the energy that brought them into this world, which is life force, it's procreative, it's sexual. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Okay, well, there's many places we can go with
Yeah.
that. How did you find yourself in this work? Because it's very detailed. And so how did you navigate this journey?
Yeah, I really kind of fell into Tantra and shamanic sexuality in a very organic way that was just a part of my healing journey. So I grew up in the Midwest in a pretty conservative area in Missouri, actually. And it was such a beautiful place to grow up for so many reasons. And I received so many amazing traditional values and morals. And there were also ways of being and more conservative values that felt limiting to me, or in some ways were inherently traumatizing. And
Mm.
especially in regards to how I was taught to view my body and sexuality. And I like to say that a lot of people in the Western world, if not everyone in the Western world, in America, receives what I would call an inherently traumatizing sexual education, just because of how we teach and talk about, intimacy and sexuality.
Or just not talk about it.
Yeah, or not talk about it. It's like, you don't need to have some instance in your past that you can point at and say, that was the moment that I was sexually assaulted, or this or that, or had a really, horrible first sexual experience, or whatever it was.
Mm.
It's like the way that we're teaching about this from the lens of religion, school sex ed, the media, porn, parents, like all of these things. Even if
Yeah.
you had really amazing evolved parents, like your very first sexual partner might not have, or probably didn't, and might have projected some of their beliefs and thoughts onto you. And then,
Mhm.
you know so that was kind of the environment that I grew up in, one where I was taught to be afraid of my sexuality.
Mm.
My sexual expression was taught to be something separate from me, wrong, bad, shameful. And so I did what a lot of people do, which was begin exploring my sexuality myself and my body.
Mm.
And that happened, behind closed doors, in the dark, doing things as fast as possible, as quiet as possible, hiding the evidence after. And I think a lot of us, and for me, I took that pattern into my
Mm.
adulthood. I took that with me. And so there's been this disentangling of, why do we feel like this is such a bad, wrong thing? And then on top of it, I began experimenting with others as well in my team.
Mhm.
And because of the misinformation and the lack of information, a lot of my early sexual experiences weren't fully consensual. And so I had a lot of trauma from that as well, being built up. So when
Yeah.
I was in my early 20s, I started meditating and doing yoga and like the typical light spiritual practices, which are amazing, but they weren't really getting to these deeper rooted pieces. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I discovered Tantra from a man that I was dating at the time. And there was nothing really like special about him that was like, oh, this is like this hot guy, or like I have such good chemistry with him, even. It was really just the intention and the presence that he brought into all of our interactions, from our very first moment meeting at a coffee shop, to the bedroom. And I started to experience more presence and pleasure in my own body during that relationship. And it kind of, that was like the way in, and I got more and more curious and started researching more and more. And not too far down the line, so many of us get into Tantra for the cool sex tricks of the neo-tantric lineages, but Tantra is so big and vast and
Mm-hmm.
broad. And not very far down the line, I started, healing my inner child, and healing my body dysmorphia,
Mm-hmm.
forgiving my parents, and so many other bigger pieces started to fall into place with the Tantra as well. So that's how I discovered it, got into it.
Wow. I love this so much because again, we can just like zoom in on a few of things. I love that you brought up the fact that pretty much most of the Western hemisphere is traumatized by how we are taught about sex or lack of knowledge about sex. And I was actually going to school to be an elementary teacher because I wanted to help transform the sex ed program. I was like, this is not okay. We need to learn about this. And then getting into that, I was like, there's a lot of red tape. It's not going to be this way.
Yeah.
Let's educate the parents, like the adults first, and then teach them how to talk to their kids in a healthy, age appropriate way. And then I
Yeah.
took another turn on that path. But so I like that you mentioned that, and how getting into Tantra has helped you heal a lot of the deeper rooted things like your inner child. And can you dive into that a little bit more about how did Tantra help you heal these? Because I know a lot of people, like, I'm not knocking talk therapy. Um, Mark is a therapist, like he's been doing that for 15 years. Like there's definitely a time and place for therapy, but how has Tantra helped heal your inner child in a way that maybe you wouldn't be able to do that in therapy? Or do you see that
Yeah.
it's like a blend of it?
Yeah. What I'll say is Tantra meets you where you're at. It's such
Mm,
a diverse, broad modality. And maybe the way into this question is just giving my definition of Tantra
yes.
for the listeners, because there are so many different lineages of Tantra. There's like classical Tantra, there's neo Tantra, which is the Tantra that most of us think of here in America. I think when people say
Mm-hmm.
Tantra, it's the more intimate sexual side. There's also Egyptian Tantra, and there's Taoism, and there's shamanic sexuality, and there's even like evidence of tantric perspective or influence in Christianity as well. So you're getting
Mm,
all of these different little pieces. And I've studied from many different people and kind of picked the pieces that I really like the best and applied them. But my definition of Tantra is going back to the root word itself, Tantra, which is a Sanskrit word. Sanskrit is this ancient Indian language in which many religious and spiritual texts in Hinduism and Tantra and other lineages were written, all in
mm,
Sanskrit. And so Tantra is two Sanskrit concepts put together. Tan is to expand, and Tra is to liberate. So
mm,
Tantra then is this modality that is meant for empowering you to, grow, expand, and also liberate yourself, have
mm.
freedom. And what I love about that definition is that it's so broad. What is expansive and liberating to me is going to be very different to what's expansive and liberating to you.
Mm,
And, every person on this call has their own definition of what's expansive and liberating to them now in this season. Because also, what was expansive and liberating to me 5 years ago is very different than what is now. So,
yeah.
what I love about Tantra is that it's this deep practice of self awareness and calibration to where are there places for me to liberate myself. And so that was a big
Mm,
thing for me, was seeing and connecting to the little girl inside of me that was looking to every one of my relationships and intimate encounters to be bestowed with worth and validation.
Mm.
And Tantra helped me kind of feel that sense in my body, get to know it, and integrate this part of myself, right? So that kind of ties into how I ended up working with my inner child doing this work.
Yeah.
I think that the beautiful thing about Tantra as well is the approach is very much about being in the present moment and really seeing the world from fresh eyes as if you are a child. And so
Mm.
that's kind of how I started in with the inner child work, was bringing this level of presence and playfulness and curiosity
Mhm.
in the world that became, in a way, a moving meditation for me throughout my life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love that you said that it curiosity and play, because we just sex sometimes becomes so serious and like
Mhm.
methodical, and it's like, it's like explore, get messy, have fun, like enjoy the experience that you're having right now.
Yeah.
And so that is so important. And I mean, again, we're not taught this. And so it can be really challenging in relationships. Can we start, like, let's gear towards that way. So you do events
Yes.
and workshops. Yeah. Can we like jump into that and talk about like how you work with people, and let's just dive in there.
Dive in, see what
Yeah.
comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll also tie a bow kind of on the last piece that we were talking about, in that so often in our sexual like interactions, like looking at our intimacy like play or with curiosity, a lot of us learn about intimacy and sexuality from this goal-oriented mindset.
Yes.
Right? Like there's this rush to get off. Like, how quickly can we get off? Will both people be able to get off? The intimate interaction ends with ejaculation
Hmm.
or coming or whatever. And so much of what I love about Tantra is this idea that sex and intimacy gets so much better when you stop making orgasm the goal and start making connection and intimacy and presence and curiosity the intent,
Yeah,
right? Like instead
absolutely.
shifting to a way of being rather than this goal. Because when we're so
Mhm.
hyper focused on a particular goal, we might miss so much more magic that's available on the table, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so one thing that I like to teach about, and I talk about this in my book a lot, is the 4 types of sex, which are reproductive, recreational, restorative, and transformational. And
Ooh.
how so many of us are approaching intimacy from a recreational lens. Like that's like, to me, the reproductive intention for intimacy and sex is the most culturally appropriate across the world,
Right.
whereas recreational is the most common intention, I would say, for intimacy and sex. But again, the problem with recreational, yes, it's for fun and for pleasure, and all of that is good. Pleasure is medicine. Having orgasms, it's scientifically proven that orgasms improve our mood and our
Mm.
immune system. And it's, again, often just focused on that goal. Whereas when we expand our menu to look at what's possible when we open the door to restorative intimacy, which
Mm.
can like actually be healing for us, heal our body, heal our mind, our heart, or our soul, like,
Yes.
whoa, a whole new, world opens up. And I'm happy to go into that more, as well as
Okay.
transformational. But I think I went kind of away from your original question
No,
about.
I love that. No, like that, like I said, I want to see, like, just let this weave its magic into it. And so I actually want to expand on this, because as you're talking about this, I think about the women that I work with, and just in general, I've been in this industry for 16 years. Like, a lot of times women take on the burden that there's something wrong with them because they can't orgasm with their partner, or it takes them too long, or they don't desire, or they're lower libido. And so I love that you're talking about these 4 different types. I would love you to expand on those more, and then we'll go into the next part of like a woman that is experiencing this kind of disconnect from self. How
Yeah.
do you encourage them to like be more present and aware with themselves in the moment and how they experience versus trying to achieve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's
So
a lot.
just to kind of wrap up the last piece, the four types of sex. So this is a framework that I received from ISTA, which is the International School of Temple Arts. But yeah, before I got into this world and work, I felt like there were two types of sex. There was good
Mhm.
sex and there was bad sex. And lo and behold, most of the sex that I was having was what I would say now bad sex, in
Mm,
that my bar for good sex was just really low because I wasn't asking for what I really wanted. I didn't really know what my boundaries were or how to communicate them. And
mhm.
mostly I just didn't even know what was possible. I didn't know that there was like a whole other menu of intimacy and sexuality that I could experience.
Yeah.
I had like had little tastes of things like, but I wrote it off as, oh, it's really good chemistry with that one person. And it's nothing to do with me or
Mm,
my power as a conscious creator of my intimacy and sexuality. So I was leaving a lot of it up to chance. But the more I stepped into Tantra and shamanic sexuality, the more I started to experience something more, with intimacy. And then this framework really supported me in understanding what that something more was. So again, the four types of sex are reproductive, recreational, restorative, and transformational. And we talked like reproductive and recreational are pretty straightforward.
mm,
Restorative we talked about a little bit, but I'll go into it a little bit more so that people understand like what is that? What could that look like? Like what is restorative intimacy? So again, this is the type of intimacy where you're healing
mhm.
or you're restoring in a way. And so this could look like the type of sex where you're just crying and you have no idea why, but it feels so cathartic and good. Or
Yeah.
it could be the type of intimacy where at the end of the day, you're really stressed out, you have a lot of tension in your body, and the last thing that you want to do is think about, self-pleasuring or connecting sexually with a partner. But you lean in, like it's like a deep tissue massage. Yeah, it's a little bit
Mhm.
uncomfortable to get started, but you know that there's going to be this like relaxation that comes, this healing wave when you're able to push through the resistance there.
Mhm.
Those are some examples of restorative intimacy. For me, like anytime I feel a headache coming on, I'll maybe self-pleasure or see if my husband wants to have sex because yeah, again, it's scientifically proven that orgasms can support your body and in your immune system and in your mental health. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Can
love
we
the
can
intention of restorative.
Yeah, can we stay here for a minute? Because
Yeah.
again, this is something that I hear um a lot of women like I just don't want to, I don't feel like it, but then once they do, they're like, "Oh man, like why did I wait so long? That felt great." And so I feel like there's this like internal conflict that I hear them talk about is like I I they know that the connection part is good, but they're mentally not there. And so they have this like struggle of like, I don't want to do it just for my partner, or I don't want to do it if I don't want to do it. So how do you lean into the resistance rather and know that that's beneficial on the other side rather than it feeling icky like you're doing something just for your partner? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So just to make sure I heard this right,
Yes.
you're hearing like a common deflection is I don't want to be out of authenticity with myself or out of integrity with myself by just doing something for them.
Mhm.
So okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, what I would say is really getting curious about how it's also there could also be a positive benefit for you, very likely, and for the relationship, like the positive benefit of nurturing the relationship as well.
Mhm.
I like to say, hey, time box it. Um,
Mm.
and in fact, in my relationship, it's more often the other way where I'm the one that's more like craving sex or wanting like wanting to make it happen, and my husband can be a little bit more like, oh, like I'm tired, I had a long day, whatever. And so what I'll say is like, let's just make out for 3 minutes and see what happens. Three
Mhm.
minutes. So like figuring out what that transition activity is, maybe if it could be just even solo dancing, like putting on your favorite sensual song and just committing
Mm.
to dancing for those 3 minutes. and then
Yeah.
just see what's available on the other side. Is there an opening? Is there a curiosity? Because very
Mhm.
often after those initial 3 minutes, there's a, okay, well, maybe we could get naked now. And then let's see what happens with the next 3 minutes. And it's like
Yeah.
just taking the little baby steps and being curious. Does
I
that
love
answer your
that.
question?
Yeah, no, that's great because yeah, that answered it for sure. And then I also want to clarify like the restorative can be a solo journey as well. It doesn't always have
Oh,
to be
yeah.
with a partner. Like it can definitely be doing, naked dancing in the mirror and getting, acquainted with your body and reconnecting and just watching yourself move and, having a, self-pleasure practice. And I feel like that can also
Yeah.
be very restorative too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All of these can be solo practices.
Mhm.
And I think that it's so empowering to give yourself a restorative intimate practice, because it's like, oh my God, I have this ability to like heal myself and it's fully for me.
Yes.
And I can do it for, like, it's all on me. Like I don't need someone else. Like how empowering is that? And
Mm,
just to give a little bit more of like an understanding of how this works and some more science behind the restorative piece. There's two really good books, Becoming Supernatural and The Body Keeps the Score. A lot of people are reading these books or have in the past few years, but both of them kind of teach this foundation that, you know, emotions are energy in motion. And
mhm.
when we bottle up our emotions or we, trap them in our bodies, the body keeps the score, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's creating this dis-ease in our energetic system. And if we don't clear that dis-ease, then it might manifest as a physical disease, right?
Mm.
And so the
Mhm.
beautiful thing about sex is that it's very naturally incorporating a lot of the same tools that these two books highlight as ways to heal the body. And
Mm.
those tools are the three basic tools of Tantra, which are sound, breath, and movement. When we are having sex and we're fully present and we're not stifling ourselves or holding ourselves back or being quiet because we don't want to get caught or projecting our past trauma into the present moment,
Mhm.
we are able to like actually allow that emotion, that stuck emotion, to express, to leave our body, because the sound, breath, and movement are helping release.
Yeah.
That's kind of a little bit more of like
Mm.
how this works.
Yes, love it. I'm excited that you're sharing so much, like resources so I can like put those in the notes and stuff. Okay, transformational.
Yeah. So transformational intimacy is the type of intimacy that changes your life or
Mm.
changes the way you see the world or changes the way that you connect with others. It's my experience that transformational sex can feel like a plant medicine journey. Like you lose track of time and space, and it's like you feel the oneness of you or in your
Mm.
partner, or the oneness of the universe.
Yeah.
Um, there are many different ways that both restorative and transformational intimacy might portray itself, but it could look like having a heartgasm. So like
Mm.
feeling the orgasm in your heart instead of just purely in your sex, or having a full body orgasm or a cosmic orgasm. Transformational intimacy could also just be trying something new for the very first time. So maybe you're connecting with someone of the same gender for the very first time. That changes
Mm.
the way you see the world. That's transformational,
Yeah.
right? So those are some examples of transformational. The way that I like to think about both restorative and transformational intimacy is, imagine what could happen if you really brought intention into your intimacy and you decided that every intimate or sexual experience got you closer to your highest self or
Mm.
God or whatever you believe in. And that's
Yeah.
really what happens again when you, just tying the bow from where we started, when you let go of the goal that you have to orgasm and that's the end of everything, you start to see that there's actually so much more space in here when you slow down and see what else is available in your body, in the energy, with your partner, with yourself, etc.
Mm. Yes. That's so good. That's so good. Um, I'm so excited to read your book. I think I want to dive into all of this. Um, yeah. I love that you
Yeah.
explained that in more depth. So now I think that's a great segue into like your workshops and the work that you do and how you like work with the community, like women that are wanting or couples. You work with couples,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I work with pretty much everyone. I have different containers and spaces for all different types of individuals. But for the in-person work, I have a few different things. So I would say I'll start with our retreats. So we have a retreat called the Tantra Love Retreat. I also sometimes do just women's retreats, but those are more one-off and are often more reserved for my like women's mastermind.
Mm,
But these Tantra Love Retreats are co-ed, and singles are welcome and couples are welcome. So it's really this beautiful mashup of different types of people from different parts of their lives all coming together and having this life-changing transformational weekend. And we're doing all sorts of exercises that are meant to meet you where you're at,
mhm,
but are again based on the foundations of tantra and expansion and liberation. But we're working with like, how do you set boundaries? How do you communicate your desires? How do you find out what your desires even are? Because so many of us have been taught that our desires are bad or wrong. So we're
mhm,
unconsciously blocking a lot of them from even coming up. How do you give a yoni massage or a lingam massage, which could create a more restorative or transformational experience for you and your partner?
mm,
What else? We do a lot of healing in regards to like the body dysmorphia, the naked body. We work with like men's work and women's work. There's lots of juicy stuff there. I
mm,
also host play parties here in Austin through Naked Soul Society. So it's a more tantric approach to play parties. It's kind of tantra workshop meets play party.
mhm,
Uh, and then I also work one-on-one with individuals and couples doing about 3-hour sessions with, tantric body work, or like creating for a couple like a tantra date night ritual. So they have someone to hold space, to go deep, build connection, and also have some tools that they can then take home into their, day to day as well. And I think that's a thing too, that a lot of people think, oh, like tantra, I need to have like a 3-hour experience for it to be tantric. Not
yeah.
true. Obviously, that's amazing. You get, bonus points for that. But there are lots of like little mini rituals that you can do that only take 10, 15, 20 minutes. And so a lot of my work revolves around helping people access this energy in a way that works for them and works for their life and works for their partnership as well. And I
Yeah.
know that you were speaking a little bit about like women or individuals coming to you with like the curiosity around low libido or
Mhm.
asexuality. And I could kind of bridge the gap into that now if you'd like, or
Yeah, that'd be great.
okay, great. Yeah. So as we were speaking about like uncovering your desires and working with that programming that often keeps us stifled,
Mhm.
I have a lot of people that come to me and feel that they might be asexual or have low libido, but in reality, they're just not having crave-worthy sex. They're not having intimacy and connection that's making them want more.
Right.
And a lot of my work is around empowering individuals to recognize that intimacy and sensuality and sexuality are really like this buffet. There's
Mm,
so many options. And what is crave worthy to one person might be very different to what is crave worthy to the next person. So you can
right.
see there's a theme here with Tantra. It's like everyone's different and like there's no right, wrong, good, or bad. It's really
Right.
about intention, right? But yeah, so you may not even know what is crave worthy to you because you don't know what's on the menu. And
Mhm.
a lot of us have, spent our whole life doing what I call slurping society soup sex, which is super focused again on having an orgasm as fast as possible. And Crave-worthy sex is the type that leaves you wanting more, maybe not like you're so fulfilled afterwards, but you're like, ooh, like
I
when's the
can't wait to
next?
have that again. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're dreaming about it. You're thinking about it all the time. Like that was so good.
Yes, 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 yes. And for many, that doesn't look much like what we see on the media or in porn, right? I mean, you think about like movies, so many movies or TV shows, the way they portray sex is actually very similar to porn, and it's very orgasm focused, and it's like
Mhm.
quite theatrical and not really authentic in nature. So you are probably using this one blueprint for intimacy, not realizing that there's actually a lot more out there. There's
Mm.
more sensual expressions, there's more kinky expressions, there's more energetic expressions. And
Mhm.
it's a matter of getting curious and creating safe spaces to explore.
Mhm.
So if you're wanting to have more crave-worthy intimacy, or you're worried about having low libido or being asexual, and I'm not gonna like, you might actually be asexual, you might have hormonal imbalances that are creating
For
low libido, and it's worth considering these things to help you have more crave-worthy sex. And I would say the first thing is to release the societal conditioning that says that this buffet, the sexual exploration, is bad or wrong or slutty or dangerous. This is
Mm.
really just doing sexual shadow work, basically.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um, and then the second piece would be to go in with an empowered mindset and be with this idea of like, okay, you have this whole buffet, but how can you eat with balance and wellness and nourishment in mind,
Mm.
rather than like stuffing yourself and then saying, I'm never going to that buffet again because I threw up after because I overdid it.
Yeah.
So being really mindful of, yes, let's open Pandora's box, but be really in your empowered discernment, being sovereign, having the
Mm.
tools to communicate your boundaries and your needs and your desires. And
Yeah.
then the third piece is actually giving yourself the space to explore the buffet, and to work with different individuals, teachers, frameworks to see what else is available,
Yeah.
beyond the obvious portrayal that we so often get.
Mm.
So,
I have just a couple more questions.
yeah.
Um, so listeners that are hearing all of this yummy stuff that you're sharing, and they're like, "Ooh, okay. How do I bring up this conversation with my partner that I want to explore a little bit more and see what is crave worthy for both of us?" And then you also mentioned that there's some like you can have like a 10-minute experience or different things like that. So if you could like how to initiate a conversation and then like some tips that they can apply um, for
Yeah.
those that are new in this field. So
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I'll just say to start, please know that Tantra is not just a journey for couples. Exploring Tantra alone can be wildly enriching. And I actually work with a lot of people that are married, have been married for years, and one person is really into Tantra and is wanting to bring this in, and the other person is a lot more cautious or even resistant to the
mhm,
journey. And so I work with them on, okay, how can we empower you to work with Tantra yourself, and maybe
mhm,
slowly bring your partner in at the pace that feels good for them, to their desires. But it's not necessary for you to have a partner to explore Tantra at all. And in fact, the first 5 years that I was practicing Tantra, it was mostly a solo journey for me. And that was
mhm,
really, really empowering for me as well.
for sure.
So yeah, so I would say the first thing that I would do if I wanted to bring this to my partner is to get really curious and clear about my own intentions.
Mhm,
So before sharing about Tantra, do your own study, like reflect on your motivations. Are you aiming to, inspire them to create more connection? Like really getting connected to the why, and being really cautious of any shadowy desire to like fix your partner. Okay. So that's a really important piece to, again, let go of the goal and be conscious and present and available for the opening that is correct for them on this journey.
Mm.
The second thing that I would say is practice living the tantric lifestyle yourself. So sometimes rather than like directly introducing your partner to tantric practices, focusing on being the embodiment
Mm.
will naturally inspire curiosity with your partner. I would also share resources that you feel will really align for them. So listen, like if listen to podcast episodes, read different books, and think about which ones are actually like the most in alignment with their interests and their comfort level, rather than throwing them all of this different edgy information. Feeling
Yeah.
it's going to be the most approachable and will create space for discussion with your partner.
Yeah. Like
I have a
information overload and they're like, ah.
yeah. I have one more main thing
Yeah.
that I think is like the juiciest and the most fun is to really look into devotional tantric rituals, because pretty much everyone is going to love receiving a massage, is going to love to receive appreciation and undivided attention from you. And so if you're, getting into tantra and you're wanting to bring your partner in, giving them an embodied experience of what tantra can look like in a way that's going to be really juicy for them by creating like a special date night focused on being devotional to your partner and infusing tantric practices into the itinerary can be really, really juicy and inspiring and motivating for partners. And this is something that you can kind of plan yourself. I have some resources on this, but I also work with a lot of couples on creating these like special tantra date nights for them. And with all this being said, I would just say have compassion and grace for your partners. Like, it can be really vulnerable. The change that can happen with tantra can feel scary for some partners, depending on their own relationship with change or their own past trauma around trying new things with past relationships or in the bedroom. And just be lighthearted and have fun as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. I love that. I love how you rounded that all out. And yeah, I would love for you to share where our listeners can connect with you and to learn more about your offers and the work that you do. And of course, I'll link everything in our show notes. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book Sacred Sex Ed is on Amazon. You can just search for it and it'll pop right up. And for anyone that purchases the book, you can also get a free month in my membership by putting in your order number on my website. So you would go to talktantratome.com/book. You can also buy the book from that link. And once you do, you just put in your order information and you get a free month inside of my online community, the Higher Love Club, which has 2 live calls every month. This month, we did a whole workshop on the erotic blueprints. And then one of our members of the community is coming to teach about self-love. And then there's also over 40 hours of additional tantric content that's different from the book in the community as soon as you join. So buy the book, you get all of this amazing stuff for free as well. You can find me on Instagram at Talk Tantra to Me. And then my website is also talktantratome.com. And you can find out all about upcoming events and retreats and other ways to get involved there.
Yay. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like I said, I'm excited to buy the book and then I'll be joining the membership as well. So very excited to be in there. Leola, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing just an incredible perspective into Tantra that I don't think many people know that side of it or just how like vast Tantra is. And so I love all the little tidbits that you shared. And yeah, I'm excited for everybody to take some nuggets away.
Thank you so much, Brianna. It was great. And thank you so much for the listeners to be open to a potentially taboo and edgy conversation. These conversations are so important, and I really appreciate the openness.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will see you next week.